So today we're making a Coraline doll. We're starting out by cutting out the body of the doll along with the arms and legs. For this, we want 4 legs, 4 arms, and 2 bodies, so that when you actually put them together, they make 2 arms, 2 legs, and 1 body, obviously. So as you can see, I'm tracing out the arms and then just cutting them out, and then I do the same process for the legs and everything else. And you need 2 pieces of fabric for the neck. The head, I actually did something different, so you actually don't have to worry about that right now. So for starting off with the body, I started using this fabric glue, and I can honestly say that the fabric glue sucked. So I ended up trying to put them together. It takes forever to dry, so I ended up in the end just sewing one of the sides, actually all 3 sides, and then the one side that I folded in ended up just staying glued after a while. But for the rest of them, I did glue the legs and arms, but when I did it, it ended up putting a lot of space on each side where it was filled with glue, and it just looks weird in the end. So I honestly wouldn't recommend doing that. If you know how to sew, honestly, I'm not the best sewer, but I did sew most of it, and it still looked fine because you are covering it with clothing, so it's not something that you really need to see, and you really don't need to be the best sewer to actually do it. For now, you do want to leave the 4th side open because we will be filling it with doll stuffing, so just remember to leave at least one part open for each leg and arm and even the body to actually be open so you can fill it with stuffing. Alright, for the face I ended up using Eva foam and cutting out the head, and then I carved in spots on the face so I can fit the eyes, and then the last part I just cut off the corner of the Eva foam and glued it on the face for the nose so it actually sticks out when I put the fabric on top, just to give it a little bit of definition and it would be easier to actually see. So what's good that I carved out the eyes too, so then I know exactly where to glue back on the buttons. After that, I ended up gluing 2 long pieces of fabric to the back of the head just to give enough room to fill it with the stuffing, and then I'd round out the back, so you can see that later. For now, we're going to fill in the body with the stuffing, and then once I'm done, I'm just going to sew the whole top together. So for the head, after filling it with the stuffing, I had a lot of extra fabric, so I cut that off and then sewed around it to kind of tighten it up. What's good though is that it's okay if it's a little bumpy in the back because you will be covering it with hair anyway. So as I mentioned earlier, the fabric glue sucked, so for putting in the stuffing was pretty hard for the arms and legs, so I ended up rolling up little pieces at a time and then stuffing it in with a pencil. It seemed to be the best method to do it. I would recommend sewing it in the future because the fabric glue did make it really tight to actually put stuff in, and when I did put some of the stuffing in, some of the fabric glue lifted up. And honestly, to fix that, I just used hot glue to fix any of the open holes because hot glue tends to be the best method for fixing everything. So yeah. So now it is time to attach all the limbs. I ended up sewing on the neck, arms, and body. Later on, you'll see that the neck is very flimsy. So I ended up putting an extra piece of Eva foam onto the neck in the back and then cutting the neck shorter so the head would actually stay up straight. I didn't get this on film. I don't know where that footage went, but at least you know why it looks less floppy from before. Now moving on to clothing, we are starting with the shirt. I ended up cutting out rectangles of orange and pink and just gluing them on top of each other with hot glue gun, which is the savior of this project. So I just lined them down all the way to the legs just so it gives enough room for when I did put on the skirt. I wasn't sure where I was going to put it yet. So once I ended up doing that, it was time for the skirt. I just wrapped it around the body and just glued it in the back. For the rain jacket, I cut out a large rectangle and square that's connected, and then I ended up cutting out holes on each side. As you saw, I kind of measured it out where the arms were, just so I can fit the arms through, because honestly, I don't know how to make a jacket, so this is how I did it. I ended up cutting out the holes and then putting the arms through, and then wrapping the rest of the fabric around the body, and then cutting off any excess that I didn't really want. From there, I ended up gluing on the arms. I literally just took extra fabric and wrapped it around the arms and just glued it because, again, I don't know how to make a rain jacket, so this was the best idea that I just came up with. Moving on to rain boots, I ended up just tracing around the foot and then cutting out 4 pieces, so I would just glue one on each side for each foot. This was, again, the easiest thing that I could come up with, and it looks really good, so I'm gonna keep going with this method. The rain jacket wouldn't be complete without buttons, so I ended up gluing on 3 buttons. I was going to do 4, but it just didn't seem like it would be enough space, so I stuck with the 3. For the hair, I got blue yarn and literally glued them on one by one by one. And then once I was finished gluing on all of them, I cut them all to the same length because I did kind of half-ass it and not do the same length the whole time, but that's okay, you can always fix it later. Once I finished doing around the whole head, I did the face because it looked really weird that the face wasn't framed. So just remember to put a little bit on the face, kind of put on bangs maybe, and it will look a lot better. I went on to paint the face, and honestly, it looks super creepy when I first paint it because the colors are so prominent and dark that it just looks, I don't know, whenever I looked at it, it looked really creepy. So after it all dried in the end, I ended up painting over it with like a sand colored paint, just so it would all kind of even out and kind of fade out the face. You won't see it until the end, but after I do it, it does look a lot better. After that, I moved on to the hair clip. The hair clip, I did the same method as making the actual hair clip for my costume with the wig, just a smaller version of that. Instead of doing a clip, I just glued it right onto her head and then painted it. For the children's souls, I started with a bouncy ball that I got from Target for 50 cents, and then that wood ball with the flat bottom I got from Michael's for $1, and I ended up painting the bouncy ball red and the wood piece black. I ended up spray painting these outside and then waited 30 minutes, flipped them over, and then painted the other side, and once those were completely dry, it was time to actually do the detail. For the detail, I ended up drawing in each little line for the gears of the tractor on the ball, which came out really good. I was surprised. And then for the bouncy ball, I ended up tracing out the star because I wanted it to be as pretty symmetrical as possible. To hold it still, I just put it in a shot glass and held it that way because it was a lot easier for it not to move. After I was done doing that, I finished tracing it out and coloring it in. Once I finished coloring it in, I waited for it to dry. I ended up doing a second coat just to really fill in the detail. For the ring was a little bit more tricky. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I ended up taking flower wire and making a ring out of that. And once I was done doing that, I ended up putting hot glue around it just to make it a little bit closed together and more uniform. Once I was done doing that, I glued on top a pearl bead with the 2 holes facing the sides because I was going to glue over it anyway. And then I just took the hot glue and glued on the detail, and it actually came out really good. And once it was dried, I filled in the ring and the detail with a silver and gray paint, and that was it. For the stone, I ended up making it out of the air dry clay. I first carved it out with an X-Acto knife and then cut out the hole in the middle and then just really shaped together what it would look like. After that, I moved on to the key. The key, I went super simple. I took the black button, put it on top of a pencil, cut the pencil, and then glued it on top, and then put a little bit of dried clay at the bottom as the detail of the key. Once I was done doing that, I spray painted the key, and then I hand painted the stone. And that is everything. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed and get inspiration from this video. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.